Hi guys, accidental master student here. It's been a long time, and I just want to tell you that I am not a student anymore. So I finished my master's on October 10th, 2022. I'm still an accidental student, but I have my master's now. That's kind of cool, right? So I thought it was going to be very easy to, like, if I did my time management, it was going to be easy. Oh, I could just tell people what I'm doing in my master's, blah, blah, blah. But I guess you guys could tell that it was busy because I wasn't able to post anything when it got, like when I got to like the main classes for my major. So I am done. I did my last two classes were like the ones that were a little bit more chaotic, not chaotic, crazy, but I needed to spend a little bit more time. So I did my practicum. It was 90 hours. I spent maybe 40% of those hours with administration, learning the operations of a healthcare organization, and I spent the other 60% in a clinic. I spent it in the advanced heart failure clinic at the hospital where I work at. So it was very interesting. That's my thing. I'm a cardiac nurse. I do heart failure, so that's the population that I feel very comfortable with. And it was kind of like I didn't want to do something super easy, but at the same time, I had a site. And because of the pandemic, they weren't allowing anybody that wasn't associated to the facility at that time. So I kind of had to scramble and get something else. But luckily, one of the directors that I work with, she helped me so greatly. So that was really good. But I kind of had to like set up the everything like in 2 weeks. It was very stressful, but I got it. I did my 90 hours. I did my report. My report was like 25 pages, around 25 pages. I had to create a presentation that I needed to present to a panel, and the panel consisted of my counselor, my advisor, which she was amazing, a guest professor, and this one was from Phoenix because that's where I live. I guess that's why they chose him, and the dean of the school. So my counselor, she was like, the presentation was good. It was very fluid, like it flowed. She felt very comfortable. You look very comfortable presenting, but I'm like, well, I teach, so I hopefully I'm comfortable presenting. And then my advisor, again, Dr. Calhoun, Dr. Wanda Carter Calhoun, amazing person, amazing professor, very understanding, very flexible, and I think she took my anxiety away. Oh my gosh, my dog is going crazy. But so she had like a couple of questions. I had turned in my paper the day before, so she kind of glanced through it. So she had a couple of questions. She wasn't familiar with what we were doing. The clinic that I work with is for patients that have heart failure, advanced heart failure, and some of them are waiting for a heart transplant, and some of them do not qualify for a heart transplant. So they get this pump attached to their inside their. It's gonna kind of sound very gross, but they get it implanted from the outside. So it's like a little fanny pack outside that has the pump, and inside like it kind of helps and do what the heart's supposed to do. So some of them use it as a bridge therapy between being sick with heart failure until they wait to qualify for and get on the list for a heart transplant. And some of them is destination therapy, which means they do not qualify for a transplant because of other diseases, comorbidities that they have, age, a lot of different things. And so some of them just kind of stay on that until they pass away. So she had a couple questions about that. She thought it was very interesting, and then the guest doctor, he only had one question about their involvement in like health fairs in the community. So he go, and I told him, I said, they used to do it, but because of COVID they stopped. But I am thinking they're gonna restart it. I wasn't too sure. So he goes, because it hasn't started, they haven't started doing it. That should be one of the recommendations that you put on your paper. So like easy. And then the dean of the school, I he made a comment and I took it the wrong way, but I think it was just like the stress and the anxiety of just getting to the capstone. And he just basically said, what is the connection between what you did and public health? And in my head, I heard, you failed, you didn't do good, and you're not going to get your master's. That's what I heard, which was not what he said. So I cried, I screamed, I stopped doing anything, and for like a whole 2 days, pity party on me. And after that, I'm like, you know what? No, like this is public health. So maybe I missed something. So he wanted data and he wanted certain numbers that I did not have, and that's fair to say. I didn't make that connection in healthcare, in public health, and all those things. You have to be data driven. Data is what's going to tell you what works and what doesn't work, and I didn't have that. So I was putting a lot of stress on myself because I presented on a Tuesday and the capstone class was going to start the following Tuesday, but I needed to have my presentation and my paper graded by Friday so I could start the class. And I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. And, I emailed my professor and said, you know what, I can't do this to myself. I cannot, I'm boycotting myself. I'm putting too much pressure. It's okay if I have to delay my last class for a couple of weeks. And she agreed, and I finished, and I got like a 29 out of a 30. So I was pretty happy with that, very relieved. And then I was starting, again, I heard something that it was not what the dean said. So I kind of boycotted and was too hard on myself. So after that, I started the capstone, and basically 6 weeks. And we were using the CDC framework of analyzing and looking at a program to see if it's working, if it's effective, if it's meeting its goals, or if it's not. And then if it's not, what can we do to fix it, right? But we look at everything. We look at the internal stakeholders. We looked at the finances, at the operations. We look at everything. So I wanted to prove to myself, I've been working with Banner for 17 years, and I've been doing cardiac that long. My passion and my love for cardiac care comes because of the loss of my grandma. She was really young. She was 55 or 56. And I was 4 or 5 years old when I lost her. And because of heart disease secondary to diabetes. And then years later, my uncle, her son, passed away around the same age, attached to one of these machines that I work with. First generation, of course. And I'm like, I loved my grandma. She was everything to me at that age. And my uncle, he was one of those people that I didn't see all the time, but when I saw him, I just felt the love, I don't know, it's just like weird. I don't know how to explain it. So that's my love for cardiac care. And but I wanted to prove to myself that I'm more than that. So I went ahead and I did not do Banner Health. I went to Honor Health, which is another healthcare system. And they have a program that doesn't have anything to do with cardiac. It's called Desert Mission, and basically it's 4 programs in one. And they have a food bank, they have adult healthcare, and that's more like a daycare for elderly people with Alzheimer's. And they have a learning center for little kids, and they have a financial program. It's called Living Well, and basically what they do is they help people that is having trouble budgeting and with their credits and stuff. Like, how can we help you, right? Because that's one of the social determinants of health. If you don't have a good job and you don't feel secure, if you have food insecurities, you're not gonna do good in life, and it affects little kids, older people. So I really like that program and the concept of it. I didn't know much about it, so it was very interesting. I spent 5 weeks, so we had to do discussions online with the other members of the, and my class was only 3 people. So, and then we had to do journals every week, and then we had to do assignments, and the assignments were like 10. Some assignments were like 5 pages, some of them were 10 pages, depending. So the idea was that at the end of those 5 weeks, on that 6th week, you put all of that together and you create the paper, the report that you're going to do. So I really learned a lot about this program. I think it's an amazing program. And the paper, it's a minimum of 20 pages, but the teacher said, it could go up to 65 pages because you have graphs and figures and tables and all this stuff. And yeah, I was a little bit stressed because when I finished putting everything together and I did it the format that they wanted, my paper was more than 65 pages. So I was a little bit stressed, and I didn't call him. I emailed the teacher, the professor, and I said, if I do it this way, it's gonna be more than 65 pages. Because the body of the paper could be between 20 and 65 pages, but then you have references and appendices and all this stuff. So I'm like, great, okay. So I gave him 63 pages. So I had 63 pages of body of the paper itself. I had I think abbreviations. I had 2 pages of abbreviation, 1 page of abbreviations, 1 page of the tools that I use, 8 pages of references, and then the rest were figures and charts and all this stuff. And it ended up being a 97-page paper, which it makes sense because it's your capstone, right? So I did that, but I put so much pressure on myself. I was so stressed that I lost my voice. The weekend before, I was supposed to turn everything in. And the thing is, I needed to create a PowerPoint presentation from my paper, and I had to narrate it. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot talk. It was really stressful. So at work, all the classes that I was teaching, I had to have someone else teach them for me. And it was a little bit difficult because some of them, they don't know the content. So it was, we managed, right? But I lost my voice. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening with my dogs. But, and I'm like, okay, so I reached out to the professor, and, I'm like, I might not be able to narrate it. Can do a script or something? Can I have my sister narrate it or something? And he told me, that was okay just to do the script. But in my head, in my heart, I'm like, I want my voice to be heard. I want to attach my voice to this presentation because, as you can see, when I, if I believe in something, I'm super passionate. I'm super so I wanted my voice there. And I didn't talk for a week, and I was able to narrate my presentation. And I was narrating my presentation that Sunday at 3 in the morning. And I usually record presentations a couple of times just to kind of see what I like the best. But I couldn't. I just said I can just do it once. And by the grace of God, it just took one take, and it was good. And I turned it in, and I turned in my paper. And it was nerve-wracking because that whole Monday, I'm like, oh my gosh, looking at my grades, blah, 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 blah. So I saw my presentation, and I got 100%. I'm like, oh yes, okay. So with that said, I only needed to get half of the points for my paper in order to still finish the class with an A. But you know me, I fight for every single point. So I did not see my grade. I saw an email from my professor saying, let me be the first one to congratulate you on your master's. So I did it, and I got 100% on my paper, and I think I finished the class with a 98.8%. So I get teary-eyed because it was a lot of sacrifice, especially for my kids and my husband and myself. But, I just wanted to make my sister and my brother proud. I'm the baby of the house, so I wanted to make them proud, and I hope I did. I I wanted to make my mom and my dad proud. I wanted to make my kids proud and be a good example to them. And I wanted to make my husband proud. He always pushed me to like just focus and visualize yourself with that cap and gown and that diploma. Oh my gosh, my dogs are going crazy. I don't know what's going on. Maybe my husband got home. So yeah, I got my cap and gown yesterday. They had a virtual graduation, but it was before my class ended, so I wasn't able to participate. So I petitioned to see if they let me walk in May in the actual graduation, where I will be able to walk across the stage. So I hope I can. So yeah, I'm not a student anymore, and I don't know what I want to do with my degree. I have an idea. I want to work for the CDC, and I want to go back home to Puerto Rico to study, do research on bilharzia, and if it's still there. They say it's eradicated, but I don't know. When the CDC came, and I kind of read about it, like when the CDC came to Puerto Rico, they were studying bilharzia, and it's like a little, it's not a worm, but it's like a little organism that's in the waters, and it gets through to your body, inside your body, and it causes, one of the things that it can cause is liver disease. So my family, there's 3 generations of people with liver disease, and I wanted to study that, right? And I was looking and I'd say, well, it's eradicated in Puerto Rico. But in reality, what happened was when they were studying bilharzia or schistosomiasis, they were studying that. And when the dengue fever became a thing, they took all of the money and all of the resources from studying bilharzia and put it on dengue. And it's been dengue fever ever since. So is it really eradicated, or is it that we're not seeing it because no one is paying attention or studying? The Carter Foundation, like President Carter, like his foundation has a program that researches and cares for people with with liver disease secondary to schistosomiasis or bilharzia in the tropical parts of Africa. So I'm like, is it really eradicated in Puerto Rico, or is it just we're not looking at it? We're not studying it anymore. We're not collecting data. So that would be something interesting for me to see and just look at, the trends, right? Female versus male, of course, ages, different ages, people that lives in the city to people that lives in the country, because in the country, they need it. They go to the rivers more. I used to go to the rivers when I was a little girl. I prefer river to the beach. But so like just to look at the trends and see if it's really truly eradicated, or is it because we're not paying attention or following the way that we were following it, right? Also looking at the numbers, it will be interesting to see those trends and look at the numbers of before Hurricane Maria to after, because in Hurricane Maria, when that happened, a lot of people had to go to the rivers to get water and wash their dishes and do the laundry and take bath and all that stuff, right? So look at those numbers, and then looking at the trends and the numbers between Maria and this last hurricane that happened. Let's look at those numbers. And then after this hurricane, did something happen? Did it get worse? Did it get better? Is it the same? So just looking at all those numbers and kind of like truly see. And then on top of that, so we have that sample population, looking at the incidence or the prevalence of liver disease on them. Is there a connection? Is there not a connection, right? So that's like, that will be my goal to do. But, everything happens for a reason. And I stumbled upon a master's in public health and I love it. I want to focus more on public health, but education, public education more than anything else. Again, in the past, I've said that I think the pandemic would have been a little bit different if we would have had like a robust, like a really good, strong education program. So we'll see what it's, that's why they're screaming because my husband got home. But just to finish, I am not a student anymore. And let's see what else I could comment on later on. See you later.